Some have suggested that Congress shares at least some of the blame for what's going on in Syria right now, because, as you know, the president, he had that red line, but he said he was waiting for congressional authorization, even though he really didn't need it, he said, but you guys never gave him that congressional authorization to deploy troops in Syria.
Yeah, I would say that those who oppose the authorization to use force own this too. Those members of Congress, I'm not one of them. On Labor Day weekend, I can't remember the year.
2013.
Okay, I went up with Senator McCain. I was briefed by the president, Susan Rice. He said he was going to attack Assad.
After they used chemical weapons.
Yes, that he was going to use military force against Assad's installations and infrastructure. He was going to upgrade the rebel capability and try to change the momentum on the ground. I went outside the Oval Office, Senator McCain, and said, I stand foursquare with the president. Then a week later, I find out that we're coming to Congress, which was a huge mistake. But to those members of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party who said that if you authorize the use of force after the red line's being crossed, you're al-Qaeda's Air Force, and there's some people on my side who said that, they own this too. But here's the deal. Assad was on the ropes 4 years ago. Obama's entire national security team said if you act now by helping the Free Syrian Army, Assad will fall. The Russians and the Iranians came in to help Assad. The Russians have been bombing the Free Syrian forces we trained, not ISIL. They've destroyed the Syrian opposition. When Aleppo falls, and it will, big win for Russia, Iran, Assad, and ISIL. Because with Assad in power, ISIL can recruit for generations to come. Big loss for the United States, all of our Arab allies, and the poor people of Syria. And there are a bunch of young kids growing up in Syria who are going to hate the West. And you know what? You know what? They probably should.
Well, you know that President-elect Trump, he's made it clear he has no desire to deploy U.S. troops to that part of the world again. He was a bitter opponent, he said, of the Iraq War.
Well, let me tell you about the Iraq War. You can blame Bush for going in and having the invasion and toppling Saddam. But Trump has said that we're better off with Saddam Hussein in power, Gaddafi, Ben Ali, and Assad. Let me tell you this, Mr. President, you're the leader of the free world. Would you want your family to grow up in a dictatorship where they could take your daughter anytime they wanted to take her? So you're going to be the leader of the free world. Obama left Iraq too soon. He didn't act when Assad was on the ropes. He owns Aleppo. This is part of his legacy as much as of Obamacare. Now, Trump is coming in. Now, what are you going to do about this?
Does he have a good national security team getting ready to take charge? You like that team he's put in place?
I like General Flynn, but to destroy ISIL, you've got to hold the territory once you take them down in Mosul. Shia militia are not going to hold Mosul. Kurdish fighters are not going to hold Raqqa. We need more Arabs in the fight inside of Syria, and we need security forces that are less sectarian when it comes to holding Mosul and Iraq.
You believe all these numbers coming out by the administration?
I think
that 75% of the ISIS fighters in Iraq and Syria have now been killed?
Nobody knows. And the one thing about intel, we got patriots out there on the battlefield giving us the best picture they know how. It's one thing to estimate the number of ISIL fighters and exactly what a dictator's up to at any given moment, but we know what the Russians are doing inside toward our election and what they're doing throughout the world. The intelligence community are patriots. They've got it right when it comes to Russia interfering in our election. As to Syria, if you leave Assad in power, ISIL can never be destroyed. The Arabs in the region will never accept him. The Syrian war never ends because the people of Syria are not going to accept him as their leader. Turkey's going to be under constant friction. So I hope the president will reevaluate. Here's what I would do if I were him. I would destroy ISIL with more of an Arab force that could hold. I would train what's left of the Syrian Free Army and recruit more people to the cause. I'd have a no-fly zone until the Russians and the Syrians, if they come over to bomb these people, would shoot them down. And I would train a force that could take Assad on and put pressure on him militarily. Then the Russians and the Iranians would actually come to the table to negotiate an end to this war. Without that, the war never ends.